Children, grab your pillow, and parents, grab your lighter. Make yourself real cozy, because we're pulling an all-nighter. It's a podcast about the fairy tales you've heard many, many times. This time will be different because we're stoned out of our minds. So spark up a bowl and tuck yourselves in. Once Upon a Dime is about to begin.
The Girl Without Hands.
Starts out with a Miller again.
A poor Miller.
Lawrence
That
Miller.
has a daughter.
He has a daughter, yeah.
All Millers have beautiful daughters.
Turns out that's a common thing. The only thing that he had was the mill and an apple tree that was behind the mill. One day he goes out to the forest to chop up some wood, and an old man approaches him. He was like, "Why are you working so hard chopping up that wood? I will give you all the wealth that you could ever need if I can have that which stands behind your mill." And he's like, "All right, so that's my apple tree. That sounds like a good deal. I mean, if I can have all the wealth for an apple tree, I'll take it." And he said, "I'm going to come back from what's mine in 3 years." He gets home, and there's a bunch of money in his cupboards and stuff.
And his wife, she's like, "Where'd all this wealth come from?" And he said, "Well, I met an old man in the woods, and we struck up a deal that he would make us rich if I just gave him what was standing behind the mill." And then she's like, "Husband, that was the devil, and he wants our daughter because she's behind the mill doing her chores. She's sleeping. That's our daughter." She just knows.
He didn't know he made the deal with the devil. But it was the devil, and the daughter was the one that he was after. The girl was beautiful and pious, and for 3 years she was without sin. So she was a pure person. She knew that it was her time.
The devil had come, and so she drew a circle around herself and washed herself. And the devil got really mad because she was clean, so he didn't have any power over her. And so he yelled at the miller that he needed to take away the wash water so that she couldn't clean herself and he wouldn't be powerless. And the miller was scared of this guy because now, he's the devil. So he said, yeah, and took away the wash water. And then the next morning, the devil had come back, but the girl had cried so much, and she cried into her hands and bathed herself in her tears.
Because she knew that her time was coming.
So then the devil was mad once again because she was able to still wash herself. Yeah, she was clean. He tells the miller he has to cut off her hands.
The miller's like, no, I can't do that. "Well, if you don't, then I'm going to take you." Well, all right, hang on, let me talk to her about this. He's like, "Daughter, the devil asked if I could just cut off your hands,
or else the devil will take me." So then she says, "Do what you must, I am your daughter." And so then he chops off her hands.
So he chops off her hands, and then they keep them. Next morning, the devil comes, and she's been crying into her stumps.
So much that she's
clean
still
enough.
is able to bathe herself.
She's clean. The devil comes back and he's like, "I can't do anything."
Like powerless against her, so then he just leaves.
The miller's rich now, right? So he's like, "I'll just care for her for the rest of her life."
Because she's like, "No, I can't stay here. I'll go somewhere where the people are compassionate and will care for me." Because obviously you cut my hands off. So
"I can't stay here. You chopped off my hands. What else are you going to do? I can't trust you. You're crazy." And she's like, "Here, tie my hands to my back." So now she keeps her hands on her back. I wonder if that's where the phrase "with both hands tied behind my back" came from. So she goes walking all day long with her hands tied behind her back.
And then she comes into the king's garden.
She sees like a little hole in a hedge. She sneaks into the king's garden, and she sees a fruit tree.
Mine said apple tree. Goes to the apple tree, and she shakes it with her body until the apples come falling down so she can sink her teeth into it and eat it.
She bobbed for the apple, and she lived like that for 2 days in the garden until the third day a watchman came by and caught her doing that and was like, "Well, this chick without hands is eating our apples." Instead of being like, "Let's find out, why she doesn't have hands," and like sympathize with her a little bit. No, they throw her into prison.
And then the next day she goes before the king, and he starts to say that he's going to sentence her to be banished from the kingdom forever. But the prince saw her and he said, wouldn't she be better to tend to the chickens?
Because she's got her hands tied behind her back and she doesn't have hands, so she pecks like a chicken, and she just fits in real well. So I guess the king was like, sure. Now she's a chicken tender. So she's tending to the chickens, and it comes to the time, I guess she's like doing that for a while, and then the time comes that the prince needs to get married.
So they send messengers everywhere to find a beautiful bride for the prince.
A beautiful and wealthy bride.
And then the prince tells his dad, you don't need to go searching far and wide for...
The one you seek is closer than you know.
He's thinking about it, and then he's like, wait, you don't mean the chicken tender?
You're gonna marry a chicken tender? I don't think that's legal. Yeah. I'm gonna marry the handless girl. He's handsome and she's handless. Boom. Ba-dum-tsh. They get married, and then the king, he obliges, and then he dies. And then the prince becomes the next successor, the new king. They're married happily for
some time. Then there's a war.
So they're 23. He's out in war, and now the handless girl has a baby.
Has a baby while he's gone, and then she sends a messenger
to tell him of the joyful news.
And so the messenger is going, but he gets really tired, so he sits down for a break and he falls asleep.
Enter the devil.
The devil has been still trying to get her, and so he's been spying on her. And when the messenger is sleeping, he goes and switches the letters with one that he wrote, saying that the baby was a changeling.
So that means she is like an alien baby. And the devil's like switching it out, goes to the king. The messenger gets to the king, and he reads the letter, and he's sad. But he's like, you know what, it'll be cared for until I get back.
Yeah.
Because he's a good guy, I guess. He's just like compassionate dude. So he sends the messenger with that letter to go tell the queen that. And the messenger gets tired again. This guy needs to get a new job. Yep. He is a horrible messenger. Falls asleep, and the devil shows up again, swaps out the letter for one that says that the handless girl and the kid need to get out.
She says, I did not come here to become queen. I have no luck, and I demand none. Just tie my child and my hands onto my back, and I will set forth into the world. She made her hands into a cradle.
So she ties her baby and her hands to her back, and she's off.
So she comes into the wood, and she sees a good old man.
A good old man. Just sees a good old man next to a spring.
And she goes up to him and asks him to help her feed her child.
See, breastfeeding in public wasn't a problem back then.
And then, after he helped her, he was like, do you see that tree over there?
He's like, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. There's a tree over there. It's a big, thick tree. That's a thick wood over there.
I want you to go wrap your arms around it 3 times. So she goes and she hugs it once, hugs it twice, and then hugs it 3 times. So she went and she did what he said, and her hands grew back. Her hands back, and she's happy. And then he was like, you can live in that house over there, but never come outside. And don't ever let anyone in unless they ask. For God's sake, 3 times. Yeah, because the devil can't say God's name.
So, can't let anybody in. The king finally returns home to his kingdom and sees that he's been tricked. He's been duped by the devil. Mm-hmm. And he sets out to find her with one singular servant.
So now they've been traveling for a really long time, like just searching for his wife.
He was searching for 7 years with one servant.
Yeah, because they're looking for this woman who's in a house and will not go outside no matter what. So they could have passed her 5 times, but they don't know. The
day finally comes that they reach the same forest that she's in, and the servant is exhausted. And he's like, "Can we rest here at this? There's a house over there. With a light on. In fact, that there's people there. Can we go and rest there?" And the king's like, "No, I gotta find my old lady.
I will not rest until I find my wife."
He's like, all right, listen, it's been 7 years. Can we just rest in this house over here for just a minute?
He's like, no, I will not rest till I find my wife. And then the guy was like, whined and begged and pleaded. He just cries until the king just gets annoyed, and he's like, oh, fine.
So then he sees her through the window, and it looks like her, and he's like, that must be her, but this chick's got hands, so it can't be her. So this servant now has been walking for 7 years without rest. He's really tired. He finally gets the opportunity. The king finally obliges him. So he's like, yes, I'm finally going to get to rest. I get to this house and I knock on the door and I'm like, of course, this person will be compassionate. And she's like,
no, I cannot let you in. So then he is like, okay, well, let's go to the next town. And then the king changes his mind because now he wants to rest. The thought of it that he was finally going to took over. And he was like, please, for God's sake, let me in. And then she's like, you have to say it 3 times. So then he says it 2 more times. And then she opens the door and their son runs to him and leads him back to the wife.
So the kid knew somehow. And they journeyed back to the kingdom. And as they left the house,
it disappeared because it was magical.
Close the chapter on this episode until we meet again. And so the story goes, we turn the page to find the end.